Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Nikki and today we are going to dehydrate onion, garlic, and ginger. I just bought a dehydrator and I'm so excited to be trying it out with a bunch of different vegetables. And I think I'm going to start with the onion. I'm not really sure if this is going to be financially worth it. Garlic powder, onion powder, ginger powder are all relatively inexpensive. But I do have a friend who dehydrated a bunch of these things and they said it was so good that they would never go back.
I just got started with the onion here by chopping off the ends and then cutting them in half. I peeled them and put the scraps into this bowl. I cut them into these half moon type shapes and that seemed to work really well and it was minimal effort. I then put them all on the dehydrating rack. I filled up 3 complete racks with the onions because I really wanted to utilize them. I put them in the dehydrator and then got started on the ginger. For the ginger, I pulled it out and then peeled it with a spoon. I actually got quite tired of this. I didn't love peeling it, so I ended up washing them and then I just chopped them up into these disc shapes and then put them onto my baking tray. I got 2 full trays of ginger as well. Then I moved on to the garlic. I chopped the ends off and then separated all of the cloves. I made sure that they were all completely separated. And then I took my knife on its side and smashed them. This makes peeling them extremely easy. And then I put them all together to give them a good rough chop. After the rough chop, I spread them out onto my dehydrating racks. I got 2 again and dehydrated this. Honestly, it took way longer for these to be dehydrated than I thought they were. I thought it would take about 8 hours, but it ended up taking somewhere between 14 and 16 hours to get them super dry. You want them to be completely dried out, otherwise they clump together really bad when you are blending them up. So here I'm just using a blender. You could use a food processor, but I do not have one, so I just used my blender and I put a paper towel on top. I know it's not the lid, but I had read that the lid can get all of the stuff stuck in it and you waste a lot of the powder. So I just tried it with the paper towel and it worked just fine. Next, I then poured it into my little mason jars. Each of these mason jars is about half of a cup, and I got 2 of them for the amounts that I dehydrated. I did the same thing to the ginger, blending it up until it was a fine powder, and then pouring it into my small little mason jars, and then again the same thing to the garlic. You do not want to breathe this in too much because it definitely made me sneeze more than once while I was doing this. It was quite intense. I dumped it again into the small little mason jar and there they are looking so pretty. I then got started on freezing my garlic. I had seen this somewhere else that you can freeze garlic super easily, so I bought pre-peeled garlic just to speed this up. Put it into my blender. If you do not have a Vitamix blender and you have been on the fence about getting one, I would highly recommend. This is not sponsored, although I wish it was, but it is so versatile. I use it for almost everything. Anyways, you put these garlic chunks in little pucks onto a baking tray lined with parchment paper. You could use a cookie scoop. I unfortunately do not have one, but that would make this go a little bit faster. As you can see, I have one with parchment paper and one tray without. I would definitely recommend using the parchment paper. It made peeling them off so much easier. A lot of the ones that were on the baking tray kind of disintegrated, which is not the biggest deal. I'll still use the garlic, but having these little pucks is just amazing to pull out whenever you need garlic and to not have to chop it. It saves so much time and mental energy. So if you're one of those people that gets overwhelmed by cooking, this is such an easy hack. I wrote the date on the bag and then popped it in the freezer. After this, I got started on the garlic, and these ones I did peel quite a lot. I don't love the texture of ginger peel necessarily, but then I chopped them roughly and then put them onto a baking tray with some parchment paper again. I flash froze these flat just overnight, and then I wrote the date on the bag first. This time I did learn that it's easier to do that. And then I got all of the ginger into my bag. We use this ginger in green smoothies, but if you're planning on using it and not blending it up or pureeing it in the future, I would definitely recommend chopping it nice and small. These pieces were quite large, but as I said, they're getting blended up, so it's not a big deal for us. Zip it up completely and then pop it in the freezer. As I said last week, I'm trying to find an alternative for Ziploc bags. I hate wasting, but I just haven't found anything to take over that. Again, with the onions, I'm chopping them in half, cutting the ends off, putting all of the scraps into my compost bin, and then I am finally dicing them. I did 3 whole onions, and this has lasted me quite a few meals already. Just putting them onto the baking tray, flash freezing them. On a different day, I just popped them into the freezer bag, and they were all ready to go. This was so convenient. I have been loving having these vegetables frozen in my freezer, and I will probably do it for even more vegetables. Bulk prep like this makes your work so much easier when you're actually cooking.
It's another day, and I wanted to give you an update about how it went. I'm talking about the dried powders right now. The taste is amazing. It's super flavorful. You don't need that much to add to your dishes, but for the amount of time and energy and money I spent, I definitely do not think it's worth it. I think if you were to grow garlic, ginger, and onion in your garden, and you had just tons of leftovers, this would be the perfect way to be using it up before it went bad. But to go out and buy your own vegetables to dehydrate just does not make sense financially. The freezing of the onion, garlic, and ginger was a super big success though. If you're looking at a way to try and use up these vegetables, this is definitely the way to do it. Having frozen onion and garlic and ginger in my freezer made everything super easy, so I would highly recommend freezing them. If you have any other suggestions of vegetables to freeze or dehydrate to make into a powder, please let me know in the comments down below. I love to hear from you. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you more than you know. Take care.